Hey, it's Adam here, and you guys are probably looking at this desk and going, nerd, nerd. If you knew what this was, then yeah, I would be a nerd. This is a soldering kit by Putusen, 80 watts. So this is a serious soldering iron. I started soldering stuff in high school. When I got my first car, a buddy of mine taught me how to put an alarm in it, and then I actually started a audio and alarm business. And you can't just twist copper together and expect it to stay together, especially in a vehicle. So that means you need a soldering kit. So I'm gonna go over a couple of things that are in this soldering kit, a couple of things I would use, a couple of things I wouldn't use. Number one is this soldering iron actually comes with a digital readout on what temperature you're using, and you can control it between 200 Celsius and 450 Celsius. So that's 392 to 842 Fahrenheit. It's got this really nice silicone grip on it. I like it. It gives me a firm hold on the soldering iron, and that's really nice. A lot of soldering irons are like smooth like this, and it's hard. It's a little thicker than I would like it. I like it to be a little thinner, but probably because it's such a massive heater, it is 80 watts. I mean, that's essentially like a welder. I mean, that's serious. It has the on-off switch so that you can turn that on and off. That's really nice. It has this stand, and you can't leave a soldering iron 80 watts sitting like this. That's just not good. You need a stand. I like that it has this coil stand, and then it comes with this little sponge. This sponge is important because this tip can get dirty, and you need it to be able to wipe it off. So this is wet. It comes, it's really flat. I have water on it right now. You just wipe that tip off on that sponge and stick it back in there. For when it really gets dirty, it has this cleaner right here. So you can just, you can either jam the soldering iron in it like this, or you can wait till it cools down and do this. But I wouldn't do this when it's hot, especially if it's 850 Fahrenheit. You can just jam it in here and clean it off. It comes with two wires, electronic wires, super small gauge wires, black and red. This is always positive in the electronics world. This is negative in the electronics world, unless the electronics company is being cheap and then they just use whatever color, and I hate that. It comes with two tweezers. It comes with an angled set of tweezers and a straight set of tweezers. So depending on the wire that you're holding, that you need in order to use the soldering iron to hold that wire in place, if you need an angled one or you need a straight one, and they're both very, very fine. A lot of electronics today are super fine, and you just need it to be exactly where. And that's why they give you 5 extra tips. So you've got really needle nose all the way to like a chisel tip, a couple like angled tips, and then some variable diameter tips. I actually don't really care for a tapered tip like this. I mean, you can use it, that's fine. Most of the time I like to have a little bit of a chisel on the edge, but small. And then, but of course, it depends what you're using. It comes with this 0.8 millimeter diameter solder. This is 2 ounces of solder, so that's a lot of solder you can do. You can do a lot of work on this. I think I worked on my solar car in college for the University of Maryland. I probably went through at least this much solder putting that wiring harness together. It has a little wire stripper here. This thing's junk. I wouldn't use it at all. I don't like it. It doesn't work well, but it's here and you can use it. This is what I would buy, and this is what I've been using for 30 years. Yeah, anyway, that's separate. The last thing is it has a desoldering bulb. So if you need to get solder off of something, you either need desoldering braid, that's copper, it's woven in, it heats up and the solder sucks into it, or you need a desoldering bulb, which is always spring-fed vacuum. Push the handle down, you melt the solder, poof, you pull the solder off. So this is really cool to be able to have this. Has an owner's manual. Honestly, not the best owner's manual. It's only 4 pages, but it does tell you some of the important things if you've never soldered before. And you just fast forwarded through this. So I have an electronic unit here that we're just gonna disassemble real quick. I have a screwdriver. We'll take the back of this off. One of the things with soldering is you usually should be doing it in a vented area because you don't want to inhale the fumes from the solder. Now that most solder is lead free, it's not as bad, but the flux in the middle of the core can get kind of noxious at times, and you just want to protect yourself. So this is a typical old school circuit board. This is something that, you know, with all these little solder bumps on it. So what I'll do is I'll demonstrate taking off one of these resistors, and then also I will demonstrate so putting some additional length wires on this. And one of the reasons, so first thing is you would strip the wire. One of the reasons you want to use solder is you don't want these things to disconnect. And if you use solder, it's not going to corrode. You don't put tape on it or an insulator on it to keep it from corroding after it's been soldered. You keep it to prevent the plus and the minus from touching. So I always recommend using heat shrink. So you cut the heat shrink to size, and then once you have that heat shrink to size, you slide it over, and then you can, let's see what wire we have here. Then you can twist the two wires together so that it holds while you're soldering. I'm going to cut another piece of shrink wrap for the black, slide it over, twist it. So then you should have two pieces of heat shrink, and then you're twisted, and then you can solder those, which let's go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so you saw me solder the wires, take the resistor off, put the resistor back on, and now I've used it enough where I can make some recommendations. First thing is, I hate this stand. It needs to be heavier. I had the soldering iron fall over on me onto the ground. So if I were you, I would put a piece of wood or another piece of metal and screw it in so this thing doesn't tip over. I don't know, that's really dangerous. Second thing is this cord's kind of short, so I had to use an extension cord, so maybe you're going to have to be pretty close to where you're using it to be able to use that. The sponge moves around a lot because this isn't tapered enough to hold it in place. It'd be nice if it had a clip or something to hold it in place. I'm kind of surprised it doesn't. The case is nice. It holds all the stuff in it. You can just put the things inside of here and carry it to your next nerd assignment. So it's got these tie down straps that these elastic straps where you can put the stuff behind. I have to cool this down, so I'm not going to throw it in there. But, you know, this I would replace, pick up one of these, and then these tips are good. They'll be able to handle anything you need them to do. So overall, I think it's a really good soldering kit. I think it'd be nice to have some alligator clip arms stand to be able to hold things. Usually I clip stuff in and then work on that. And then this stand needs to be more solid. And then this user's manual's not that good. But overall, I like it. I think it's a pretty cool soldering kit, certainly for beginners. Just need to make a couple modifications.